Hello everyone, it's time for a story. This story is called One Snowy Night and it was written by Nick Butterworth. What animals can you see on the front? I can see a badger, I can see two ducks, a hedgehog and lots of little mice. Shall we see what happens to them in the snow? It's cold in the park in winter, but Percy the park keeper doesn't mind. He puts on his warm coat and his big scarf and he wears 2 pairs of woolly socks inside his Wellington boots. Percy likes to be out in the fresh air. In the middle of the park, there is a little hut. This is where Percy lives. When it gets too cold to be outside, Percy goes into his hut where it is cosy and warm. The animals who live in the park all know Percy's hut. Every day he shares his lunch with them. One winter's night, it was so cold that it began to snow. Great big snowflakes fell past the window of Percy's hut. Brrr, said Percy. I think I will need an extra blanket tonight. So he made himself some hot cocoa and he got ready for bed. Suddenly Percy heard a tapping sound. There was somebody at the door. Now who can that be at this time of night, thought Percy. He went to the door and he looked out. Who is it? Shall we have a look? There on the doorstep was a squirrel. It looked very cold and very miserable. I can't get to sleep, Percy, said the squirrel. My bed is full of snow. Oh dear, said Percy. Never mind, I've got plenty of room for 2. The squirrel snuggled up down next to Percy and soon began to feel warm. Knock, knock, it was the door again. Now who can that be, thought Percy. Shall we have a look? Who is it? Standing outside there were 2 shivering rabbits. It's freezing, said one rabbit. We're frozen, said the other. You poor thing, said Percy. Come on in and warm up. The rabbit squeezed into bed next to Percy and the squirrel. There wasn't much room. Could you face the other way, Percy asked the squirrel. Your tail is tickling my nose. Knock, knock. Oh dear, said Percy. Now there's someone else at the door. Who is it? Let's have a look. What's that? It was a fox. He looked very cold and hungry. Can I come in too? He asked. Percy scratched his head and he thought for a minute. Well, if you promise to behave, he said. I promise, said the fox, and he squeezed into bed next to all of the other animals. Bump! Whoops! The squirrel fell out. Who did that? asked the squirrel crossly. There was another knock, knock, knock. Good gracious, said Percy, it's the door again. This time Percy had quite a surprise. There on the step was a badger, 2 ducks, a hedgehog and a whole family of mice, and they all wanted a bed for the night. Poor old Percy and poor old Percy's bed. The animals pushed and shoved and rolled around the bed, but there was just not enough room for them all. Soon the bed covers ended up in a big tight ball. Then bump, the covers rolled right off the bed and everyone fell onto the floor. Oh dear, said Percy. This won't do at all. My bed is just too small. Suddenly one of the mice pricked up his ears. What's that noise? He squeaked. Everyone listened hard. Now They could all hear it. There was a scratching, scraping sound, and it seemed to be coming from underneath them. There's something moving under the floor, whispered Percy. There's something under the floor. The animals looked frightened, and the mice started to all squeak at once. Squeak, 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 squeak. Oh dear, what can it be? It might be a monster with fierce claws and sharp teeth. The noise grew louder and louder, and then one of the floorboards began to move. Look out! It's coming up through the floor. Suddenly there was a loud creak. Help! Cried the animals, and they all ran off to hide. Who could it be? But Percy wasn't frightened. He started to chuckle. Then he laughed out loud. Ha ha ha! A small dark head was sticking up through the floorboards. Can you see? Who's that? This isn't a monster, said Percy. It's a mole. I'm sorry to burst in like this, said the mole. I knocked the door, but nobody heard me. Percy helped the mole up through the hole in the floor, and he sat him on his hot water bottle to get nice and warm and put the floorboard back. It's all right, everybody, he called. You can come out now. But nobody moved. Nobody stirred. Nobody wanted to come out. The squirrel was tucked away in the pocket of Percy's dressing gown. The hedgehog was in his coat, and the fox, the rabbits, the badger and the ducks were all safely hidden away. Can you spot them? Where are they? The mice had squeezed themselves into Percy's slippers, and everybody had found a cosy bed. Well, I never, said Percy. Percy yawned. And he snuggled down in his own bed once again. That's better. Now I've got plenty of room and a little to spare for a mole. And that is the end of our story, One Snowy Night. I hope you're not too cold today in the snow. Remember to keep nice and warm if you go out to play. And I'll see you soon. Bye everyone. Bye.